Welcome to Unresolved, the podcast for customer experience leaders. On this show, you will hear from different types of companies, how they view and measure customer experiences, how they manage their teams, and then we dive deeper into the unresolved issues that they're facing today. We're specifically calling this podcast Unresolved because so many CX leaders are testing with AI in different areas of their operations. They are rebuilding with AI as their foundation. And every one of us have to reinvent everything that we've known about customer experience systems and processes. You're not alone. So let's do this journey together. Today, we have Paul Tucker, the head of support and success for ChiroCat, a practice management platform built specifically for chiropractors and their teams. Paul, welcome to Unresolved.
Happy to be here, Brett.
So I want listeners to connect with you and your story. So I'm going to start with some grounding questions. We'll get into how you're building your team and using AI. And then I'm going to dive into what's still unresolved for you. So first, kind of like let people know, tell me about your team, the size, the structure, what you're responsible for.
Yeah. So ChiroCat is a small but mighty team. We are, I would say, in that startup space. So we're small but scrappy and growing. I'm actually actively hiring right now for a new seat on the team as we continue to expand. I have 5 direct reports. I've managed big teams. I've managed small teams. I'm the head of customer success and support, which just means that everything on the CX side of the fence or everything customer post-sale rolls up to me. Everything from support, success, onboarding, offboarding, that's all in my purview.
Awesome. And also, so how people can kind of connect with you as well as let us know what your tech stack is. What is your team using on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so we're currently using Help Scout for our support. I use Claude for a ton of stuff and MCP, all the things. So there's a lot of different automations and tools and things like that going on behind the scenes to augment some of our team's skills or to help them find information faster and things like that. Really love Help Scout for its simplicity and speed and kind of putting the conversation first. One of the challenges we're facing, though, as we continue to grow is the lack of automation or the lack of specifically workflows that will restart. We could get a lot more value out of Help Scout because I love the people there. I've worked with them for years. We've got to have the ability to get creative, to be able to trust the platform to automate certain things and surface them for us so we can move a little bit faster and make better plays and make sure that things don't fall through the cracks along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And I get the understanding of like, you need to keep your team lean. And the way to do that in some cases is automate that busy stuff or automate those triggers. And whenever it comes to Help Scout or Intercom or Zendesk or whatever people are using, you got to find that niche, that thing that helps your team stay lean and stay accurate. So I want to shift over. I want to talk about how you've built the support team at ChiroCat because the decision you made runs counter to what most companies are doing right now. Like you've hired insurance billers with chiropractic backgrounds rather than generalists, like general support staff. So what drove that call?
Yeah, well, if you've worked with me for any length of time, you know that I love an analogy. So much so that here at ChiroCat, they call them apologies, meaning in the sense of a Paul analogy. And I think that's probably just more of a testament to the fact that Paul just needs things dumbed down to a level he understands. So I'm constantly working in analogies. But the analogy here is, Brett, if you and I jumped on this podcast and started talking, and let's say we both went to Spanish, the language has the tools to get it done, but I don't know how to exercise that tool enough to communicate my emotions, my feelings. We might be able to connect on some level of what we're trying to achieve, kind of going back and forth with our high school Spanish at each other. Maybe we could get there and at least get some basics. Maybe you could help me find a bathroom or something like that. But to really understand Brett and like what makes you tick, to connect with you personally, to connect with you professionally, to understand what you're trying to achieve, we're going to have to be fluent in the same language.
Yeah.
And I don't have a chiropractic background. That is not me. I came traditionally from like traditional IT. And, over the years kind of grew into the software side of things, always kind of in that customer facing support, success, CX world. So I do come from the more traditional SaaS background. But there's an aspect of that where I just had to admit to myself, I don't speak the language. And there is no point. I can go to a native Spanish speaking person and I will never be able to fool them that I can speak their language fluently. They are immediately going to know I don't get them. And that realization was really core to the thought of I need to hire people that, air quotes, speak the language.
Yeah.
And people go to school for years to become a doctor of chiropractic. People go to school or get certifications to become medical insurance billers. And there's so much technical expertise there. I'm never reasonably going to be able to master that in a short timeline. So the shift was I need people who speak the language, not just for the perspective of I want to be effective, but the other side of it is I want the customer to know that they're heard and understood. But it went a little bit deeper than that in the sense that I actually want the customer to jump into that live chat, pick up the phone, send that email. And when they get that response back, they're like, oh, this is different. This person actually knows what it means to submit their SOAP notes and their charting. They actually know what it looks like for the front desk workflow for checking in, collecting payment, sending people out the door. They know what it means to collect intakes. They know what it means to submit insurance billing and to bill to secondary, to Medicare, and all this different sort of stuff that's like massively tangential and nerdy and challenging industry expertise that you just don't intuit. It's a different level of training and expertise that I can't bring with me.
You and I have very similar stories. When I started at Frame.io, which is a video collaboration platform, so if you're like making commercials or movies or anything along those lines, you need to be able to collaborate. Well, I'm not from the video production industry, but I did hire people from the industry. I mean, people that were familiar with video production, who had assembled professional cameras on set, specialists in video editing. And I was able to teach them customer support, customer experience. I'm not going to be able to teach them how to assemble a red camera and explain the lenses or anything like that.
Yeah.
So when they were helping customers, when they were chatting with our customers, the customers are going above and beyond the Frame.io questions. They're like, hey, so how do you do this in Adobe Premiere? Or whenever they would say that problem, like, I'm having a problem with Frame.io doing this. And we'd be like, what are you really trying to do? Back out. Let's talk through the workflow, like not where you're using Frame.io. Let's talk about how it fits into what you're actually doing. And we found that it wasn't a Frame.io problem or a feature request. It was actually their workflow problem. We just realized we can't just teach somebody how editing works, how the production works, but we can teach somebody from that world that has actually done the work. We can teach them the playbook, the tone, the empathy, how to manage customers, how to manage a lot of feedback and such.
Yeah, and like you're saying that, like we all talk about the SME or the subject matter expert, and that's great, but that's kind of internally focused. It shouldn't be discounted, but like you were just saying in your example, that there's something with being like an industry authority where people can come to you and you can touch with authority on a topic that's tangential or adjacent and be like, no, like, don't do it that way. Do it like this. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with our product, but if you do it this way, you're going to be set up for success in our product because you kind of walked in the door this certain way. And that's, that is just so huge. It's such a value add for the customer on the other end to have someone not necessarily be prescriptive, but descriptive of like, hey, I get it. You might be doing it like this. You might be doing it like this. And here's what we recommend, or here's how I've seen it work best. And being able to say that with authority, man, it earn so much trust
Yeah.
so quickly.
Thinking about how AI can now scrape information and data and phone calls and I would love to be able to like take that information and be like, what is the retention level now? After giving that feedback, after giving that context, maybe they're at like a 75% retention rate, but now are they at like a 99% retention rate? I would love to be able to measure that because it's not possible in a human form how we could measure something like that simply by, hey, we gave them above and beyond. We gave them the workflow, not just
Mhm.
the fix to the product that we support. Anyway, a little tangent there, but I really
No, I
wish
totally
that
agree.
we could kind of dive deeper into something like that. But what I want to switch over to is customer appetite because that this phrase you used
Mhm.
in one of our conversations, I want to unpack it. Customer appetite, and every company right now is being pushed to automate customer facing support. You went the other direction. I want you to walk me through that decision. Like what drove it? Who did you have to bring
Mhm.
along?
Yeah. So I guess I should start by saying I'm not anti AI at all. I'm
Yes.
very tech native, AI native in the sense that I'm automating tons of stuff, built apps, built internal tools, built Slack apps, tons of integrations. What I am though is I'm very uh, human first. So it's not that I'm not anti AI, but I'm very pro human. Louder for the people in the back. You can't automate trust. You can't um, automate relationships. And I say that with the caveat there are a ton of things you can automate, but those two you can't. And and other things, but the human quotient is something that has to be respected and thought about and considered. And so many leaders, so many teams that I interact with and talk to, just in my circle and whatnot, I just don't hear them talk about the customer appetite to receive AI. And namely, that is when they reach out for help in some way, for education, for resources, whatever that is. Um, And meanwhile, inside companies, we have so many people that are just saying, hey, look, we deflected 45% with an AI, chatbot that's serving up knowledge content, blah, blah, blah. Um, that I'm not against that. I think that can actually be really helpful. So I'll use myself as an example with Intercom or Fin, as it's now called, that they have a great implementation of chat inside of their own product. Where if I'm trying to do something, I could just go bloop, click on it, ask my question, natural human language. It's searching their massive amounts of knowledge and past conversations, and it will give me that information right there, just in a few seconds. And for me, who's very comfortable with that, I find great value from it. Like I'm happy to have that be 90% of my interactions look like that. And very quick, I'm like, there it is. That's what I was looking for. And on my way I go. But one of the things they do well is that I can say, no, that didn't answer my question. And more often than not, be connected with a human on the other end because my use case or my specifics that I'm trying to achieve don't match the most standard workflow. So as we think about this human appetite thing, you have to know your customer personas pretty well and understand what they actually want to receive. So I can AI all the things and even do a good job at it, where I'm giving good answers. And at the end of the day, the customer on the other end, because their appetite to work with AI is low or extremely low, perhaps, that silently we have their satisfaction is being reduced, their trust is not being increased, and their churn signals are silently, they're starting to wonder. I hate using the word silently now because of AI. It's like quietly
Right?
this, quietly that. Like, stop it, AI.
Yeah.
I used that word before AI. Anyway, uh, customers are quietly, building resentment or just that their
Yeah.
trust is being eroded because they're not meeting the face on the other end. And that is such a value add for certain customers, certain personas. They need to know the voice of the person on the other end, whether that's the voice through the keyboard or the voice quite literally through async videos or phone calls or whatever that may be. Um, you got to build the relationship. And if AI is not going to help you do that, it never will. So if you're not framing around that and understanding the appetite of the customer, you may actually be causing harm to your long-term retention rather than saving it or maintaining it.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast just this morning, Lenny's podcast.
Yeah,
It talks about product. They have such incredible
it's a
speakers
great podcast. I
on
love it.
this
Yeah.
podcast. The premise was engineers used to collaborate. Now they're really working like siloed. They're working with their agents. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of folks are working separate now. And it's becoming a lonely role
Mm-hmm.
as an engineer because you're working on a project and you have your agents that are doing the work. You're orchestrating things. You're not collaborating as much anymore. You're in charge of
Yeah.
something that's much bigger than an entire department used to manage. And I feel like with AI being infused into CX, we could also be getting into that role
Mm-hmm.
of we're just talking and orchestrating to AI and chats and like measuring things and trying to fix things and tweak things. Like how else can we not have to talk to the customer? And so I feel like we're losing a bit of an element of maybe we just pick up the phone, or maybe we just actually jump on Zoom or Teams or whatever your
Mm-hmm.
flavor is. Maybe we actually just talk like humans instead of literally try to
Yeah.
continuously tweak what the AI chat responded with. So yeah, I feel like we're separating just as the engineers have already done so much to pivot how they operate, and we're in the same boat. Like CXs isn't in the same boat of making too much space between us and the customers and
Mm-hmm.
literally just trying to create those solutions with AI.
Yeah. No,
So
I totally agree that's measuring that and looking at it is a challenge because, and that's actually one of the reasons that I joined ChiroCat, was talking with our CEO, Chance Gurr, and our CTO, Doug Tanner, that immediately knew that I had um, kind of such strong alignment on this customer appetite towards the AI. Um, Many of the people I talked to would either be in that strongly anti AI camp, and I was like, well, I'm not there.
right.
I do think there's a place for this tool. They shared that same perspective very strongly that like we're not going to use AI just to use it and just to put a badge on something or just to cut head count or something like that. Like it's actually that's not even our perspective. Our perspective is how can we add value, and if AI isn't adding value, if it's not making us closer to the customer or closer to the need, we're doing it wrong. And that has been like such a joy. Like we're constantly thinking about talking about in our next quarterly meetup, we're going to be talking about more so about our AI values, kind of our AI manifesto, if you will. But right now, even our company core values truly motivates how we act, that even now we're bringing our company values to bear with AI and how we implement it, which is both fun, but it's also really challenging, nuanced stuff to be that person in the middle. But thankfully, I'm surrounded by good folks who share that uh, desire to hold that tension well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one last thing on customer appetite for AI, for using AI. Genesis came out with like the state of the customer experience. What they reported was, I'm looking over here, more than half of consumers say they would rather do almost anything else than contact customer service.
Mm-hmm.
However, on the other side of it, 84% will give a virtual agent 3 attempts or fewer before giving up on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll pause there and I want to think about, like, you had to think about who your customer base is. It's chiropractors. They work with people. They're not building software. They like you are working with the software. However, your customers are not. They have teams of people that are picking up the phone right there in the office. They are physically talking to people, adjusting people. So they may not want to go through an AI chatbot, maybe to get like
Yeah.
informational things. And
Mhm.
so the same point of like, think about what your customers are doing. And if they're not spending all day on a computer, like for
Yep.
instance, for Frame.io, yes, they may be spending time on the computer editing, but they're not even using our product.
Mhm.
It's a tool to be able to edit
Yeah.
through Adobe Premiere or whatever they were using. It's merely a tool. It's not the primary where they're spending their time. So we had to
Mhm.
think about that too. How can we get integrated into Adobe Premiere? Or maybe they're going on a shoot, so they're going to be gone for 3 days. We may correspond, and all of a sudden they drop, and it's because they literally had no more time to be on the computer. Now they're going to go on a shoot for 3 or 4 days, or even 2 weeks, and then come back with the same question. Hey, just bringing this right back up from where we left off. So
Exactly.
the thing about Appetite is you got to think about the customer and what they actually are doing. What
Mhm.
are they stepping through? What is their workflow? And then match that and think, do they really want to jump on a Zoom call? Do they even have that installed? Or should I just pick up the phone and give them a
Yep.
call? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I'm constantly thinking about is, do we meet the customer where they are? And do we understand what they need in that moment? And it's so hard to gauge that. But if you try to understand the customer, try to understand their workflow, try to understand what their day looks like, it really helps, because no one, it's hyperbole, very few people buy software because they love software. They buy it because of what it enables them to do. And oftentimes, what it enables them to do is actually the part of the job they hate.
Mm,
So when you understand that anytime the customer is picking up the phone or even needs to ask the question, they're not entering that conversation sentiment neutral. They're actually, whether it's spoken or not, they actually have a negative sentiment, which is, I don't even want to be in this tool. I don't want to be doing this work. I want to go do my trade craft, like what I actually studied. I want to be behind the camera in your example, your Frame.io example. Um, they don't want to be in the tool. They want to go do the thing that they love. For the chiropractor, they want to be actually interacting with their patients, making adjustments, changing lives. I get excited about the tools. I get
yeah.
excited about the product. The customer isn't excited about the product. They're like, if you could just get out of my way as much as possible, and let me do what I love and what I'm really good at.
Yeah.
Um, so like, I don't have the answer to that question other than to say, you can't quiet that question. You have to sit with it. You have to live with it over and over and over again. For a product, for the support team, for the CX team, for onboarding, you need to get out of the way and help them do what they love. And man, that's hard.
Yeah. What's the one thing in your CX operation that's still unresolved that you haven't been able to fix yet or figure out yet?
Um, I would say metabolizing feedback while avoiding customer feedback, while avoiding two of the most common pitfalls, at least in our case. I've seen this at other organizations too. So I know it's not bespoke to only us, but a lot of times when you get feedback, or however well-intentioned or maybe spicy it may be, from the customer, that you can do one of two things. One is that you can be like, they just don't understand how great we are. They don't understand, like, they're just uneducated on how to use our product. You could pull the Steve Jobs, they're holding it wrong, type of thing with the iPhone 4 of like, no, like, actually, if you squeeze the phone wrong, the I guess it's probably 4G LTE antennas don't work anymore. Like, it loses cell phone reception. So they had to put the bumper case around the outside and all this different sort of stuff. It's like, but Steve Jobs' approach was, they're holding it wrong. Um, that's one side, is kind of almost to be defensive of like, maybe they don't, or maybe you would put it more internalized, like they don't understand how hard we're working for them. That's one pitfall. The other pitfall is to like internalize, which is just like, we can't do anything right and everything's broken and we're never going to get this right. So like for me is I'm really wading into, so one of the spaces that I'm spending a lot of time in with Claude lately is making better tools to identify from customer conversations, those touch points, to ingest all of those touch points, and then to learn from it what is their churn likelihood. So get those leading signals in place. I've spent some time building some tools to track churn and kind of keep track of all those different customers that might be likely to leave, kind of the remediation of that, and kind of manage it more as a project. And that's good. But now I'm trying to think upstream more of like, how can we get in front of, the customers telling us something? Do we understand how to take that voice? But man, I don't know. I'm still struggling with that balance of how do we do a good job at being able to really sit in the space of the customer said this because they meant it, to actually take it and metabolize it, but not metabolize it in a harmful way that somehow slows us down or makes us think less of ourselves.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm curious to hear what thoughts you have on that. Like, pick your brain. You've lived in this space as well. Do you have any strong words of wisdom for me?
It is a hard balance because on one end, you have that $20 a month client that has the biggest mouth, that has all of the negative things to say. And yet it's just a matter
Mm.
of the way that they're using the product to the point of they're holding it wrong. Well, they were probably doing something wrong in Adobe Premiere or something. And they just wanted Frame.io to do this specific thing, but that's not
Yeah,
how it works. They don't understand the whole workflow kind of a thing.
for sure.
And then on the other hand, you have entire corporations with 1,500 seats in the product,
Mm.
paying for each one of them. They have no qualms whatsoever. And they may have some feedback of things that we wouldn't have ever expected or ever thought about. And then that's where it may get on the product roadmap. But at the end of the day, this person wanted more features that we shouldn't because it's not addressing the workflow. But the question that I feel like AI may not be able to answer, and unless if you pump it full of everything in the industry, is how do you know where in the workflow this actually would be solving, and or
Yeah.
should we even consider this? But many times people just have their GitHub repository linked into Claude, and then so it's only actionable based on what the product does, not what it solves for, and
Hmm.
understanding where it fits in the entire scheme of the entire workflow that the customer that the industry is using your product for. Back in 2019, we built an Airtable database, and we linked all of the feedback to what's the overarching request, and can we tie it to one of 20 categories. And if we could think about that, we could think about the workflow that request was actually touching. Super manual, very, very manual. It was automated to get all the feedback in there from Intercom through Zapier into
Hmm.
Airtable. But then it was like we had to take a step back and think, what were they actually thinking about? Okay, I'm gonna guess this one. So it was an exercise for us to step into their shoes and try to attribute it, and then could we solve for the workflow, not for the individual request?
Yeah.
That was hard. I feel like that piece could be automated at this point.
Just this last quarterly, I did essentially that same idea but I was ingesting all of that. And I said, please, help me. I don't know if I said please, but I asked Claude to help me thematically go through and show me the core areas of the product, the surface
Good.
area of the product that were
Yeah.
generating conversations or touch points. And from that, then by percentage breakdown of like, where we are and, what are our top conversation starters, as it were. And that could be anything from training to broken to whatever the case may be. And that ended up reframing really what we're targeting this quarter as a company, which was basically make the workflows better. So
Mm.
instead of looking at a feature first approach, we started looking at it from a workflow first approach. Now that may ultimately result in net new functionality, of course, but it's kind of the first principles thinking of like, what is the workflow? Where are people getting lost? And then how can we address this from a feature? Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always tough to know how to ingest that and make sure you hit that right balance. I think I messed it up. I told one of my coworkers here the other day where we had a customer that was a non-fit, like truly what they expected from the product and what they needed from us was not a fit. And I was talking with one of my reports, and I said, you know what though? I said, the thing that I have to remember is that this customer is going to go somewhere else and they're going to find a product that does meet their need. And I said, that's not a problem we solve for today. Right now, we aren't the right fit for them. That is the correct answer. We're not the right fit for them right now. But I said, we have to let that sting just a little, not too much. Like, we have to know what we're good at, but it has to still sting a little bit that they left and went somewhere else. And we have to acknowledge that with humility that somewhere out there, another product was a better fit for them. And learn from that, metabolize it the right way. And it's like, that gets me. I guess that must mean I'm made for CX or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're not trying to be the sales force of chiropractors either. Like that's not the goal.
Yeah. We can't be all things to all people. So there's a balance to that too. It's another pitfall the other way. If you're everything for everyone, you'll be nothing to anybody. So it's, like, how do you balance that?
Paul, I appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective on building that human first support in a world that really wants to automate what should remain human. And you can connect with Paul on LinkedIn, and that link is down in the description. And thanks again, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. It was great.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. Subscribe to hear more incredible stories in the era of Unresolved. Have a great day and a productive week.